Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I'm Reverend Jim Webb. I serve as the senior minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I'm the author of the book, The Soul of Prosperity. So I begin, as I often do, with a question. What type of prosperity would you like to enhance in your life? Would you like more emotional prosperity, where you have emotional balance, a sense of peace, and a sense of well being, no matter what's going on outside in your world? Would you like more physical prosperity, where your physical body works in harmony and in balance, and where you can move through your world effortlessly without hassle or struggle? Would you like financial prosperity, where your finances flow and are no longer a source of worry, but are a source of joy? Would you like relationship prosperity, where all of your relationships are supportive and loving and are sources of joy instead of sources of worry and aggravation? Whatever type of prosperity you desire, it is hiding in plain sight. It is already there because the light of the universe, that is benevolent and beneficent, that shines upon you and shines through you, is, as one of its qualities, prosperous. As A Course in Miracles says, God's will for you is perfect happiness. And whatever your idea of God might be, one way to think about it is as a river of light, a river of love, a river of grace, a river of peace. And as this river flows to you, it can flow through you. Our task is to refrain from distorting this river. If the river of love is coming through you and causing you to feel unconditional love, let not our minds place conditions on it. Oh, but I'm not worthy of unconditional love because this or that or the other. If the river of light is coming through you in a wondrously abundant volume, let us not limit that river of light. Course in Miracles, one of the lessons says, I will not limit the expression of the beloved of God. So prosperity in all of its ways is a flow. Through our errors in thinking, our thinking of ourselves as sinful, our thinking of ourselves as not enough, our thinking of ourselves as stuck in an old pattern or an old definition, believing we are something other than the beloved of the source. That thinking distorts the river of light. Our task is to remove all those distortions and all the barriers to it. Now, many of those barriers and distortions are distortions in our minds, erroneous thought patterns that actually then start showing up no longer as thought, but as energy, and as energy patterns that become made manifest in our bodies and in our worlds. So, our task is to become aware of these thought patterns and to correct them. Now, one of the first places that these thought patterns lodge is in our bodies. For example, we may have a thought pattern of our not enoughness, of our sinfulness, or of our undeservingness. And this thought may actually be somewhat like a thought of self rejection, self punishment, And that causes our energy to contract. We fear that we are being attacked, and we go into fight or flight mode. So what happens in our bodies when we go into fight or flight mode? When our bodies go into fight or flight mode, they tense up. Our bodies literally contract. The cells in our bodies contract. Our neutrons, protons, and electrons slow their vibrational rate. And when our bodies go into fight or flight, they store energy. We store energy because we're either going to use that energy to fight or we're going to use that energy to flee. And so that energy is stored so that we can pounce in one way or the other. So where does this energy come from that we store when we are under stress? The energy that we store is stolen energy. It is stolen from our body's normal and balanced functions. So when we're continually under stress, I don't think I'm enough, and therefore I feel like I'm sinful, and therefore I feel like I'm going to be attacked, and therefore I'm under stress, and therefore I'm worried about this, and therefore I'm worried about that. We steal energy from our body's normal functions. And let me give you an example. All that energy that gets contracted, all that energy that gets stored in fight or flight, and all that unconscious stress, triggered by all that unconscious stress, it gets stored as it is stolen. And let me tell you one of the many places it's stolen from. It's stolen from our bodies that naturally create salivo-immunoglobulins. And I'll break down that word. Salivo, immunoglobulins, the things that actually maintain a healthy immune system. So when we are constantly under stress because of our minds, our immune systems become depleted because our bodies are no longer manufacturing as many salivo-immunoglobulins. Those are the natural antibodies in our spit. And as a result of that, we are more susceptible to nasal colds and the rhinovirus. Now that's fascinating. There are so many things that the body stops doing when we are under stress and when we are in fight or flight. So what happens when we're under constant stress, constant fight or flight, based on a constant idea that something is wrong, that we're not right, that we're going to be punished, and an unconscious creation of struggle and lack and all of that? Well, our body stops doing so many things that it gets knocked out of balance, both minor and major imbalances. And when our body is knocked out of balance, eventually, it doesn't work right. And illness results. So what I just explained in a rather long way is the mind-body connection. And the reason that I share that with you in that way is because there was a study that showed that when people meditated, they were much more likely to continue to reproduce things like salivo-immunoglobulins, as well as anticoagulants for the blood. Their blood pressure was likely to go down. And all of the precursors to things like stroke and all of the maladies of high blood pressure were likely to be reduced in a statistically significant, clinically provable way. When people meditated, they calmed down. When people meditated, they found peace. When people meditated, they connected with a source and a force, let's call it the river of light, that flowed through them without the distortions of the stress created by the mind. What that is an example of the mind-body connection and how it can be used to support an often overlooked aspect of prosperity, which is physical prosperity. But this mind-body connection can be used to create all types of prosperity as well, as we use our minds and realize that our bodies are tuning forks And when they are tuned to the highest vibration, they can attract all the prosperity that we desire. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Using the mind-body connection for prosperity. Not just to reduce stress levels and reduce your likelihood of getting a cold, reduce your likelihood of having a stroke, reducing your blood pressure, and reducing all the risks that high blood pressure creates, but also using the mind-body connection to tune your tuning fork that is your body to the highest vibration possible, that it might attract the most joyful, peaceful, loving, and abundant circumstances that you deserve as the beloved of God. And when I say we are going to explore this, it's not only me. It's also my dear friend, Jim Goodwin. Jim Goodwin is a licensed clinical practical social worker, social practitioner. He's got all these initials behind his name, amen?
Amen.
And in addition to all those initials, he's got a lot of knowledge. His background, he was a high school teacher and principal, so he's a natural educator. But he became a licensed clinical pastoral
Professional counselor.
licensed clinical professional counselor. He has a thriving counseling business. And he's also a medical intuitive. He's an intuitive counselor using a number of different techniques. And he's a medical intuitive, and that too is fascinating. So he's here to help us to use this mind-body connection to create all aspects of our prosperity. So I welcome you, Jim Goodwin.
Thank you, Jim. Reverend Dr. Jim Webb. I'm very honored to be here.
Yes. One of our viewers says, Jim Goodwin is the bomb. And I agree. And I agree. Jim Goodwin is the bomb, guys. So listen to him. So tell me, Jim Goodwin, what is a medical intuitive?
Well, Jim, I have to tell you, your introduction was beautiful. All I'm going to do is say the same things you said in different words.
But you'll say them better.
Well, maybe. I got a few pictures too, because I am a former educator. A medical intuitive is one who uses intuitive means, who uses their inner spirit voice, their God voice, or their channels to discern medical challenges and how one might free themselves up from them. Some medical intuitives may have clairsentience and be able to sense or know things about another person's medical health. Others may hear, taste, or smell. In my case, I'm very visual, so I see the aura, the energy that flows through and around a person's body. Mm-hmm. And to my eye, my mind's eye, it looks like a colorized MRI, 3D in real time.
Okay.
So the Chinese might call it qi.
Yes.
Scientists might call it electromagnetic energy. We've been taking pictures of it through MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays for a few decades. Some of us are simply able to see it in our mind's eye.
Thank you for normalizing it. And that's so important. Letting people know, hey, what you do is just like what the MRI machine does, but you do it intuitively. That normalizes it and makes it accessible to so many. So thank you for that.
Yes.
And give me an example of how you've used this in our world.
Well, with clients, friends, family that come to me with a health challenge, mm-hmm. I will take some time to tune into it in my mind's eye, be able to see what's going on, and begin to describe to them where I see the energy blocked or altered, and see if we can tease out different factors that may be contributing to that blockage.
Like a trick knee or something like that?
Pardon me?
Like a trick knee or something like that?
Exactly. That was a perfect lead in. Yes, a very dear friend of mine who you know very intimately as well, had a trick knee. And he asked if I could take a look at it. It turns out, from a physical perspective, there was inflammation in the connective tissue. He had some fluid buildup in the inner part of the knee joint. As we explored a little further, it seems that he was also working very hard on some financial decisions that had potential important consequences, right or wrong, and
Yeah.
a number of people that had opinions about what he should do financially.
Mm-hmm.
So the knees are part of the legs, which are connected to the hips, which are governed by the second chakra. And the key to the second chakra is relationships and power. One way in which we measure power, like it or not, in this 21st century is through our flow of money and finances. So as he felt potential threats, his knee locked up to remind him that he better tread carefully. So we tapped into his spiritual beliefs and we asked him, what do you know to be true about your finances, about your abundance? And we tapped into his knowing that he is fully abundant at all times and the universe is working with him. And by piecing all of that together, he freed up his knee in a matter of days.
And made the right decision from a real estate and investment perspective that helped him to prosper even more.
Yes, and got right back to hot yoga.
Yes, he did.
Hey,
So,
Jim, this is a great
yes,
time. Can I pull out a visual?
yes, please.
Okay. This is a visual that I often share with clients or when I'm teaching workshops. This is my model for life. We are mind. Wow, this is backwards. Mind, body, and spirit all the time, always overlapping. Everything that we know ourselves to be is held in a larger context. The universe, the divine, God, collective unconscious. When we align our parts and feel centered, everything falls right into place. So with this challenge that my friend had with his knee, we looked at the thoughts connected to it and we connected to his spiritual beliefs. We brought it back around and healed his knee. And he was able to easily return to his center. So for me, an example of centeredness, anytime I'm in a beautiful part of nature or at the beach or when my children were born, and every day when I meditate, I can pull myself, mind, body, and spirit into center. Now, Jim, I believe that you would call this our glory.
Yes.
When we're aligned, mind, body, and spirit, we shine through in our own divinity. You see the white on white. This is where prosperity happens, right here in the center. So the process of healing, the process of enlightening is a process of alignment, such that we're reining in our parts. We're reining in our errant thoughts. We're correcting our wrongly held thoughts. We're making conscious choices of how we want to maintain and work with our bodies. We're paying attention to the messages our bodies are giving us. And we're connecting continually to our spiritual source so that we can correct our thoughts, correct our body, enjoy our divinity.
Yes. And what is so if you want to hold that up just a little bit more, Jim, what is so striking about that is so much more white space where you have expanded your glory in union and in alignment with the infinite glory of the universe, where you and the universe have achieved a level of oneness and deep alignment. And that alignment is like being connected to a water hose. If any of you ever had a spigot on the outside of your house for washing your car, you plug in the hose to it. And when that hose is aligned with the spigot, there's a flow that is uninterrupted, unobstructed. There are no kinks in the flow. So when you are in optimal glory, you are in optimal flow, you are in optimal openness, and you are optimally open to all of the gifts the universe would offer you. the gift of inspiration that gives you that new $1 million idea, the gift of deep peace that helps you to get through any situation, the gift of deep awareness that helps you to understand the truth of any situation, that the universe supports you no matter what it looks like in any moment, and the universe has ideas that can help you make the right decisions from an investment perspective, and you can move forward. Amen?
Amen. Jim, that was beautifully said. And I love your simple analogy too. Yes, the more we practice getting aligned, the easier it is to get back to it, the more time we get to spend there. I don't know if any of us will get it perfectly aligned all the time. I'm sorry, this is confusing because my computer shows me backwards. My finger keeps going wrong.
We get it.
So as we find ourselves slipping out of balance, or forgetting sometimes what we know to be true, or making a choice that is decadent and perhaps not in our best interest, we have opportunity continually, as many times as we need, to rein ourselves back in and realign.
Yes, absolutely. And the wonderfully great news about this is the more we practice that realignment, the more that larger alignment becomes our default state. And we ultimately get to a point where misalignment is the anomaly. And we become so adept at realigning that it'll only take a hint or a whisper from the universe to cause us to go within, to cause us to tap in, to cause us to connect and to realign, as opposed to the universe dropping a ton of bricks on our shoulders. And what that means in practical ways is that we are less prone to drama and trauma because we hear the whispers before drama and trauma occur as a scream. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So, what a wonderful way to put it. And I know there are many ways that we can align. And I know that you have some guidance for us on this. So we're going to go to break, and we're going to give everybody a chance to ask any questions they have about this process, or ask any questions they have to Jim about, or other examples of how he has worked with people as a medical intuitive, and how he has integrated his traditional counseling with his spiritual counseling, because I know he does some other things like shamanic journeys and Reiki and all that stuff too. So we're going to go to break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to chat some more, hear some more stories, trade some more stories, and explore using the mind-body connection for our prosperity even more. So in a moment, we're going to go to break, and then we'll return. We're on the New Thought Media Network.
Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back. What an honor and pleasure to be here, and such a joy to continue this conversation with Jim Goodwin. My lips don't work well enough to mention all of the consonants behind your name. So you give me those consonants again, Jim. My lips can't wrap themselves around those consonants. Jim Goodwin, LCPC, licensed clinical professional counselor.
You got it.
All righty. Well, we've got a couple of fascinating questions. One of the questions that we received was, what are some quick tips that we can use to align?
Okay, quick tips. What I tend to do is when I notice, actually, let me back up a little bit. Generally speaking, if you take that diagram with the mind, body, spirit overlap, swing body and spirit out and imagine it like a seesaw. Right in the middle is the mind. That's the fulcrum. If our body is heavy and is weighing us down, that's a clue to the mind to tap into the spirit that we might lift it back up. If our emotions are heavy and dragging us down, that's a cue that our mind can tap into spirit to lift it back up. So what I tend to do in my practice throughout the day is tell the universe what I desire. I'll acknowledge where my discomfort is, and then I'll typically acknowledge what I'm grateful for and what I'm looking forward to. So, for instance, this week I had some sinus issues. I admitted it to the universe, and I'm thankful for breathing and looking forward to freeing it all up again. Then I would close my eyes and breathe in the love that I come from and exhale peace. While I'm relaxing my body, reining in my mind, trusting my spirit guides to work through me. And then I shifted my thought. I just breathed in life and I exhaled healing. And I'll tell you, I'm healing that sinus condition in record time. I've healed a number of things in my body in record time. I'd love it if I never even had to, but I'm human. So I get to work on my own healing. So the quick advice is to tell the universe what you want and then breathe it in and relax into that flow.
And I love how you integrate gratitude, which is a welcoming of good, and you integrate anticipation, which is the creation of good, in that practice of getting back into alignment. I tend to be a student of A Course in Miracles, so I tend to revert to A Course in Miracles lessons. And two of the ones that I revert to, because what happens with me quite often is, we do the 7 a.m. Course in Miracles call, right? And then we're on a high. And then I'm cooking my bacon and I burn my hand with the Greek bacon grease. And then I'm not on a high and I utter a profanity. And then that's like, oh, I think I'm out of balance. And then I bring myself back by working with key lessons in A Course in Miracles. And two of the ones I use are number 49, God speaks to me throughout the day. Because the first line of that lesson says, this ends your feeling of aloneness or separation from God. And every time I use that line, God speaks to me. It begins to shift my mind from I am separate from the loving source.
Jim, your mic dropped out for a second. Could you repeat that line again, please?
God speaks to me throughout the day. And each time I use that line, it brings my mind back into union with God and away from the thought that I was separate from God and therefore deserving some sort of punishment like burning my hand with bacon grease. And then I go to, let me remember that I am one with God. And I work with the Bible verse, nothing shall separate me from the love of God. And those 3 thoughts that I use are like breathing in God and realigning me with God and causing me to see things differently. Lesson 16 from A Course in Miracles, let me see this differently. Causing me to see things differently, no longer seeing any separation from God that would cause me to feel deserving of struggle, lack, or suffering or pain. And that's one of the things that helps realign me.
Mhm.
Now, another question that we had, and we'll do this generically so that it can apply to the largest cross section of viewers. One of the common physical issues that we all deal with from time to time is back pain. So, Jim, what are some of the common causes of some of the common spiritual causes for back pain, and some of the common ways that we can address back pain?
If someone comes to me with back pain, I will typically ask them to describe it. Then I'll tune into their aura, look at the energy flowing through and around their back first. I'm a big believer in chiropractic and
Mhm.
physical therapy. Very often there is misalignment that can be corrected through manipulation.
Mhm.
But I'll also tease out with them um, any aspects related to their personal power that they may be struggling with, any reasons for added tension there. Lower back is a very foundational part of the body. So we tend to clench and hold tight there, often subconsciously, unconsciously, when we feel threat. Um, I would say that money is very often an issue that will show up in the lower back, especially for men. I will say that safety is often an issue. Feeling unsafe is often something that will show up in the lower back, all of which can be freed up.
So basically, second chakra issues show up in the lower back.
Second and third. Second
Okay.
chakra, as I mentioned in the knee example, relationships and power. Third chakra, centered right in the middle of the belly, would be
Okay.
self-esteem.
Yeah.
Where those two come up against each other, our relationship with others and our relationship with ourselves, right in the middle of that is our sacrum and our lowest lumbar. And
Okay.
that's often a tricky balance to achieve,
Mhm.
that balance of self and others.
So if someone has unconsciously, gradually, and imperceptibly sacrificed themselves for others that in a way that creates resentments that are unconscious as well, would that show up as lower back pain because
It
they're
absolutely
someone else's
could.
weight?
Right. It absolutely could. And now look forward. How many organs does the body hold right in front of the lower back? That could show
Mm.
those imbalances and resentments, guilt, shame, um, past trauma, abuses of power, either by ourselves or toward us, can show up in any of those belly organs and or the lower back and hips.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
the task is to tease it out and see how we can free it up.
Yes. Yes. To tease out what is the mind source of the body pain? Is that how you would tease it out?
Yes. Yes. Jim, can I give you another example of a case
Absolutely.
study?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit so I can show you a large poster.
Okay.
Okay. This client came to me with concerns about Crohn's disease, a
Okay.
chronic inflammation of her colon.
Mm-hmm.
Her doctors were she was taking steroids, and her doctors were expecting they would have to remove part of her colon.
Mm.
Um,
That's a rather
Continue
invasive
on
surgery.
steroids for the rest of her life.
Oh my, that's a rather invasive surgery, and steroids can
Yes,
have
it
other
certainly is.
effects on the body.
Right. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's entirely too common, where a swollen part of the bowel is simply removed rather than healed. My
Mm.
intention would always be to help a client heal the source of their discomfort. That doesn't mean doctors aren't healers also. Many of them are. But if we can work together collectively and see what each of us can bring to our healing, particularly in teasing out the causes and freeing those up,
Yes.
then the doctors can do their job better too. But we don't have to just start with the radical physical intervention. Okay, so this client, if you imagine for just a moment the brain, spinal cord, and then out from there governs all of the nerves to govern the entire body. Every millimeter of the body has a nerve connection. Any of those nerves can be part of the filing system for our thoughts, for our past experiences, our beliefs, our values, our emotions. And there are patterns to which we tend to hold certain experiences. So this client had a childhood trauma, well, a set of traumas really, with an alcoholic mother who often told her very awful things about herself, projected her own self-humiliation and anger onto this daughter, who then tried very, very hard to be extra good, to not be nice. But nice, as we see here at the base of the throat, is not always honest.
Yes.
Okay. So in trying very hard to be nice, she didn't always speak her truth. So she did compromise her thyroid. So her metabolism was hindered. She also was always biting her tongue. So she was developing TMJ.
Is that jaw thing?
Yes, that's the jaw. Now you see a little snake-like structure. That actually was a spiritual intrusion. That's where shamanic practice came into play. There are spirits and entities around us that will suck our energy if we allow them to. They tend to come in through a vulnerable place. So the very first thing we did was remove that snake, and the TMJ relaxed right away. That was easy. Teasing out this trauma, that took a few sessions, being able to free herself, find her voice, teach her how to meditate. That's what she looks like in a meditative state.
Okay.
And that green is a zest for life. That yellow is her spirituality. I often see yellow in prayer and meditation. So sitting in that space and learning how to sit there often healed her Crohn's. She was able to gradually diminish the steroid use. No surgery was needed. She adjusted her diet a bit. I helped her with that. Even though I'm not a nutritionist, I had some intuition, some ideas. And from there, she went into grad school to get her MBA. And the endeavors to establish a women's health center.
Oh, wow.
So, huge success. But she was able to free up the Crohn's disease because it, again, as we were talking about the lower back, hers just showed up a little farther forward, just feeling a tremendous sense of guilt and shame and imbalance in her relationships, and then afraid to really address them outwardly in the world.
Yes.
She turned all of that around in such a beautiful and glorious way and endeavors to help other women free themselves up.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. So in essence, if there is a physical imbalance, it has at its root a spiritual imbalance. That spiritual imbalance may have been triggered by past trauma or conditioning. When we find the root of that trauma, whether it be a physical event or the conditioning or the erroneous thought as a result of that event or series of events, we can heal that event, which can help address the symptoms left behind. And that's how we can use the mind-body connection to support our physical prosperity. And I love how you talked about working with doctors. Doctors, the first thing they want to do when they find a symptom is to either cut out or medicate the symptom. And what you do is in combination with the doctors, which is not only let's do something drastic and irreversible, like cut out the symptom or medicate the symptom with other side effects, but also let us find the root cause that is supporting the creation of the symptom, and let us heal that root cause so that the symptom may mitigate on its own. And I love how the two work together. And that reminds me of how 30 years ago, when I first moved down here, I had a friend who worked at the NIH, and all the scientists at the NIH called Reiki and the effects of meditation and all that stuff voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started calling it alternative medicine once they started studying it and saw that there were lots of statistically significant, empirically traceable improvements as a result of meditation and spiritual practices. And then it moved further on the spectrum. It became complementary medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It was no longer an alternate, it was a complement.
Yes.
And then it moved a little further on the spectrum to integrative medicine, where the two are so integrated that the two have become one. And that, to me, over the last 30 years since I moved down here, has been a wonderful shift. Integrating spiritual practices to support physical healing. And so I just wanted to share that, because what we're talking about is no longer considered voodoo. If you have physical symptoms, they have at root a spiritual imbalance. That spiritual imbalance can be addressed and can support the mitigation of physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I wanted to bring that up is because the common thread through all of this is meditation and connection. Meditating and connecting with the source, allowing that river of light, that river of love to flow to us and through us, allowing it to flush out, make us aware of, flush out, heal, transform any thoughts, ideas, or the residue of thoughts or ideas that block the uninhibited flow of good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we can use the mind-body connection for spiritual, for physical prosperity, as well as every other type of prosperity. Because that same meditation might offer you the $1 million idea. That same meditation might offer you that insight that heals a relationship that has been troublesome for 30 years. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have been so wonderful, Jim, in helping us to make this connection. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, my disclaimer, I'm working on developing a website. It's not yet launched. I'm working on a healer's training school, not yet launched, but soon to be. So in the meantime, the best would be email, Jim Goodwin, LCPC at AOL.com. And let me know what you're working on, what you're interested in, and whether or not I could add you to an email list so that I can send future announcements. But the email would be the best way to reach me at this time.
Okay, wonderful. Now, one last thing. I do understand that sometimes it is possible for you to uncover blocked memories that may be at the root of a physical ailment. Do you have an example of that comes quickly to mind?
Oh, wow. Yeah, two come quickly to mind. One actually was found in a past life regression. A teenager who had, she was a very gifted violin player and ice skater and a brilliant student. She had tremendous pain in her wrists and couldn't play. We found her trauma in a past life where she'd been in prison and badly mistreated, such that in this life, she was anorexic and resisted feeding her body because unconsciously she did not want to develop womanly curves and unwanted sexual attention. But that left her malnourished. As we healed that past life and incorporated into this life, she regained full health. She gets occasional reminders, oh, I need to eat.
Yes.
But that was a past life memory that had been, repressed.
That's fascinating, Jim. That is absolutely fascinating. And that feeds into something that we've been working with. We did a past life show a few weeks ago, and that idea was so powerful that it prompted me to do a 6-week series called Spirit Speaks on past lives,
Oh,
where we will spend 6 weeks uncovering past life trauma. The,
oh,
the guides will work with people to uncover past life memories and trauma that may be affecting their prosperity in this life. And that
oh,
actually begins on Thursday, the 15th of September at 7:30.
that's
And as
wonderful.
yes, as of this morning, I had 2 slots. I filled one today, so I have one last slot available for that class. But we'll talk about that a little bit later.
And you'll be facilitating that, Jim?
Yes, I will be. I will be facilitating that.
That
But we'll
sounds
talk about
really
that later.
wonderful.
I only have one slot left.
Hmm.
Um,
Another example that comes to mind, I had a client who suffered from knee pain, back pain, and well, she was largely overweight and wanted to lose that extra weight that she was carrying. She uncovered childhood sexual abuse,
mhm,
and that was held specifically in her second and third chakras. And
mhm,
as she confronted that abuse and
mhm,
worked through it and soothed her own inner child,
mhm,
she began to choose food out of love
mm.
for her body. And she lost 80 pounds over
Wow.
the course of a year. But it started with releasing and working through the trauma, loving herself and all
Yes.
that she had made that trauma mean unconsciously, subconsciously in regression. Bringing
Mhm,
it to the surface allowed her to work it from all that she knows as an adult and all the love that she would express to anyone else. She
yes.
learned how to express it toward herself.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for those examples, Jim. So, what else are you working on these days?
Oh, well, as I said, I'm developing that healing school.
Okay. Yeah.
And I want to teach other healers of any genre how to
Mhm,
bring Reiki, energy healing, shamanism, developmental psychology, and one's own intuition all together into one place for their own healing and any that they would care to work with. I'm
mhm.
very excited about that.
Oh, wonderful. So, you're working on some very interesting stuff.
Yes. And I just have to get myself up to speed with the internet.
Okay. Okay. So, you're working on some very interesting stuff.
Yes, I believe so. I feel very, very blessed.
Oh, good. It's fun to work on interesting stuff.
Yes, yes, always intrigued.
Yes. I'm working on some interesting stuff too.
Tell me what you're working on, Jim, in addition to your past life series.
Yes, the Past Life series starts on Thursday. On Monday, we're doing Spirit Speaks on family relationships. Because what I realized is that there may be unconscious memories or unconscious trauma in either family relationships from the past or past lives that may affect our ability to allow and create our prosperity today. So on Monday nights, I'm doing Spirit Speaks on family relationships, helping us to untangle those family relationships uh, that might block our prosperity. And on Thursday nights, I'm doing Spirit Speaks on past lives, which help us to identify, uncover, and heal past life trauma that might affect our prosperity. So between becoming aware of unconscious family patternings and relationships and becoming aware of past life trauma and relationships that block our prosperity, those 2 classes together, one starting tomorrow at 7:30, the other starting on Thursday at 7:30, those together can help us to identify and uncover blockages to prosperity that we didn't even know were there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be fun. I have one slot left, and you can get in touch with me to register if someone on this conference wants that one slot. There's a $50 discount that ends at midnight as well. So this class will sell out. It's just a matter of
Wonderful.
take that last slot.
Jim, I applaud you for your wonderful work and your openness to spirit and all that's inspired through you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And so we're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back with a final salute, some other good news, and a prayer.
Okay.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're I want to thank you once again for being here and being intelligent. I want to clarify something. Monday and Thursday, you registered
Jim, you'll need to adjust your mic.
I wanted to clarify that our Monday our classes are two for the price of one, because that was a question that came up. So if you register for the Monday class, you can take the Thursday class, or vice versa, because they are two for the price of one.
And Jim, may I ask, I'm not available those evenings, but I'm very interested in your classes. Will they be recorded, and will one have an opportunity at a later date or a different time to tap in?
Absolutely. The classes are held on Zoom and they are recorded. So even if you are unable to attend the class via Zoom, you can subscribe to the class and you can get the recordings. And the recordings are wonderfully powerful and useful because the recordings have all kinds of wonderful prayers. They contain sacred energy and teachings that apply to you, even if you didn't get a chance to ask your question of spirit. So, yes. Thank you, Jim.
Beautiful.
Yes. So we are at the time when we say goodbye. So we want to thank all who have joined us and all who will see this broadcast.
Yes.
We want to thank Jim Goodwin. Thank you so much, Jim Goodwin. I'm so glad you were able to add so much light.
It has been an honor and a pleasure. I can't believe we're done already. I have so much more to say.
Well, we'll have to do it again.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I want to thank all who have participated. And we'll do a brief final prayer. Great Spirit, our Creator, you speak to us throughout the day. Your infinite light, love, and wisdom can uncover for us anything in the way, anything that might cause, create, or support a physical imbalance, anything that might cause, create, or support an emotional imbalance, anything that might cause, create, or support an energetic imbalance, God, we let you in. Make it clear to us that we may choose to heal it, and may your power, grace, and love lift it from us now and forevermore. Amen. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here on the New Thought Media Network.